You're good. What's up, fight fans, and welcome to another Sunday edition of Enter the Ring Live with your hosts, Mighty Mike and
AJ Rage.
We are, we're waiting Eric the Red to call in. His business is back in full swing, so these are obviously weekends are busy days for him. But I'm sure Eric will check in a little bit.
Yeah, he said it was gonna be a little late.
That's fine. We'll hold it down until he gets here. Adjusting my camera here, my thing got a little messed up.
Yeah,
is it all right?
That looks great, dude.
Okay.
Looks great.
What's going on, bro? How you doing?
Doing good, man. You know, doing his
cool down a little bit here in Southern California, right? I mean, It was only high 80s today, right?
The weather's just really weird, man. It goes from being cool. It was still really humid out here, and the winds are just kicking up, tearing everything apart. It's I don't know what's going on anymore, man. You know, but
the world's in a state of revolt. I think we were talking on the phone yesterday. And, not to get too political or really make this into a political show, but there's a lot of unrest all over the world, from South Africa to France to Italy to Great Britain to Sydney, Australia to here. It seems like I think I said something today on the phone, or was it yesterday? I talked to Eric today about how World War III won't be fought amongst nations. It will be fought within nations. It seems like every country's imploding right now.
No, you're absolutely right. It was ironic because my wife actually spoke to some friends that she has in Australia, and
oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not trying to get too political here. We can keep that with our other things going on that we're gonna start, but you wouldn't know it. So if you had family in Australia, especially with the boxing community, obviously we show a lot of love towards Tim Tszyu. There's been a lot of fighters out of Australia that we've always kind of looked up to, stuff like
Jeff Fennick,
Jeff Fennick, Costa Tszyu, and people like that.
The Maloney brothers currently.
Absolutely.
Who just touched down here in America.
So, I mean, obviously their safety is a huge concern for us being people that are, within the, there's Eric the Red right there, within the boxing community.
Yeah.
So when she talked to her friend, she was saying how, I mean, it's in pure disarray, and it's not where they're out there destroying their communities and stuff. They're going after the government. It's a revolt. Civil war. It's a civil war inside of Australia.
Well,
it's everywhere.
Well, it's the epitome of what I think people should assemble for. It's to fight tyranny against the government. No matter where you are in the world, every people should rise up when they feel they're being oppressed by a tyrannical government. And I know that Italy is imposing more lockdowns again. Sydney, Australia, major lockdowns again. The UK, Paris, France. South Africa is in utter civil war right now. It's just
Canada has turned into
oh, Canada! I saw stuff today.
A complete mess.
They're arresting journalists that are trying to cover. If you're not towing the line.
Before we jump into the boxing thing, there's just one thing I want to say real quick, without getting too political, is whatever their agenda is and whatever they're trying to push, it's just like in boxing. There's been times that we watch fights, and no matter how they try to spin it, no matter how many Andre Wards and Timothy Bradleys you get that try to change your opinion of somebody based on their opinion, people who truly have that nature within them of self-thought, self-preservation, just self-willingness and something, and they're going to preserve the things that they love. Boxing for this, life in the other part. People aren't stupid. And the problem is people's eyes are wide open and stuff, so they can go ahead and keep doing what they're doing. At the end of the day, when you have people trying to push their opinion on you rather than ask you what you think, there's a problem.
Yeah. It doesn't work in parenting.
Guys, my internet, internet is jacked up right now.
No, you're good. You're good.
Well, he froze a little bit right there.
So I'm going to go ahead and back up, okay?
Oh.
Okay.
Sorry,
yeah,
guys.
you just froze for a second there, but
oh, we lost him. We lost Eric the Red. He's going down with the boat. He's going down with the boat. So, hey, before Eric jumps back in, let's go right to it, man. Let's talk about a fight, bro, that you were busy. I was busy. Everybody was busy. You know, the fight came out a weird part of the month. Let's talk about what happened with Jamal Charlo and Brian Castano.
It was Jermell, right?
Jermell. I'm sorry, Jamel.
Okay, so Jermell, the 154. Okay, I got to be honest, man. I watched that fight. I watched every second of that fight. And after one round or two, first 2 rounds, I thought, well, Jermell's physically, he's a little too big. He's gonna probably eventually be able to impose his size and get Castano out of there. Eric looked like he's on there twice now.
I'll get rid of this one. Go ahead.
Anyways, man, I watched it again for a second time. I gotta be honest, man. I had Castano winning that fight 7-5, possibly 8-4. What the Jermell Charlo supporters and the people that are basically saying, well, you know, he's the champ. You know, Jermell was the champ. You got to go in and beat the champ. Blah blah blah. Well, that's nonsense because Castano was a belt holder as well. Now, granted, he had only one of the belts. Jermell had 3 of the belts. All you had to do was look at Derek James, and Spence, Errol Spence, and his brother Jamal Charlo's face after that fight. They did not do a good job of selling that fight. The only one that had a good who sold the fight with the way she looked was Jermell's wife. They interviewed her right after the fight, and she was fully confident that, you know, well, yeah, Castano was tough, but we won the fight, and we'll give him a rematch. I'm thinking, yeah, it's easy for you to say. You're not in there getting punched in the face.
Yeah.
I mean, she obviously just sees dollar signs for that. Dude, I don't know, man. The shine is off the Charlo brothers. And I said this, I think we were talking on the phone, maybe Eric, maybe it was me and you, or me and you, AJ. The shine is off. The tough time that Maul had with Montiel a few weeks back, and then the tough time that Jermell had with Castano. Now, I'm not taking nothing away from Montiel and Castano, but these are not exactly world beaters. These are not exactly guys that were setting the world on fire. These were guys that were highly great underdogs. I mean, dude, what was it? 9-1? Jermell Charlo was a 9-1 favorite over Castano to win by a stoppage.
At fight time, it was a 9-1 favorite. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm telling you, the shine's off the Charlos, guys. Their days are numbered.
Well, I'll tell you that was perfect what you just said, bro. Before I go ahead and put my thing in, Eric, what do you think about the result and the actual fight between Brian Castano?
I had
Jermell
Castano
Charlo
easily winning that fight. Winning that fight. It's a travesty to see what happened, quite honestly. That one ref had it
one
judge had it 117 something.
Yeah, they hit 9 rounds to 3.
I had it 117, 111, the opposite direction.
Yeah.
And so
he had it 9 rounds to 3 for Charlo, which was, come on, dude.
Yeah. It's horrible. It's horrible.
No, those are both great points. I was actually more spot on with what Mike was saying. I had it 7-5 for Castano. I thought there was maybe 1 or 2 swing rounds there, possibly. There were sections of the fight where I think Charlo was starting to get into his rhythm, but never truly kind of got into it. Castano did exactly what we said he was going to do. He pressured Charlo. He completed the action. Remember we talked about that, about letting Charlo start something, but he had to finish whatever Charlo did. Mm-hmm. And he did that successfully a lot of times. Now, early on in the fight, I believe it was the second round, it almost cost him. He got caught by a shot. He was hurt. Yeah. You got to take your hat off to Castano, to Brian, for being able to bounce back. He was hurt throughout that round and a good portion of the following round. But he still.
What round was it that he hit Charlo with a left hook and
that was fifth, I want to say,
4th or 5th, and buckled him? I'd never seen Charlo buckle that way. I mean, even Tony Harrison hit him and never really buckled him like that. I mean, he looked like for a half a second there he was about to go down, and he fought through it. We
talked about that Brian Castano's power may be a bit underrated going into this fight. People keep talking about his stature, saying he's not a big guy for 154 pounds. It's been proven time and time again. I don't think it really matters how big you are. It just matters on what you're bringing to the ring. And when you match Brian Castano against Jermell Charlo, Brian Castano's the one who comes in with the pedigree. I mean, he's the amateur, he was the amateur standout. He's a guy who went into that Boxing World Series. Just the experience alone, he got in Boxing World Series fighting guys like Sergey Derenchenko and others. was huge dividends for Brian.
Yeah.
Facing guys like Errol Spence and these other guys in the amateurs. I mean,
Yeah.
you got to take it off. You got to take it off for the guy. I mean, do you see? Here's a better question. What do you see different if the rematch happens? Which I'm sure it will happen. What do you see different?
I'm gonna, Eric, if you want to go first, I might go ahead, Eric. What is your take upon a rematch happens?
I think Castano's going to come in and know that, well, Charlo just ran the whole damn fight anyway. Castano had a I don't know.
Charlo didn't run, but he never really took a step forward. He just was content to stay on the ropes. Whenever Castano tried to back him up and actually backed him up, he conceded and went right to the ropes and allowed Castano to, maybe because he doesn't have that. He's not exactly fleet of foot, the Charlos. I mean, they're tall and rangy and they should be better boxers, but they're really not. They're really not boxers when you think about it. They're more like punchers. They stand flat-footed and trade. There's no jab, there's no movement. You know what I mean? At least that's not what I'm seeing from either of the brothers.
I think what I'd like to see, and maybe to slow Charlo down next time, is a little bit more body work from Castano. You know, get a little more body work and maybe bring him so that he doesn't weaken him up a little bit more. Because
those body shots were affecting.
Yeah. When Brian stuck to that, you're absolutely right, Eric. That's a great point. When he was sticking to that body work, he was hurting Charlo. We talked about that too.
He was hurting him,
but he kind of deserted it. He would let it kind of, he didn't stay consistent with it like I thought he should have. But you're absolutely right.
I'm going to be honest. Here's what I think, guys. You guys, we're not going to see a rematch.
No, I don't.
We're not seeing a rematch, and I'm going to tell you why. Jamel made a comment. Well, when I fought Tony Harrison, I made the adjustments and I came back in the rematch and I won. Yeah, because you lost that fight. You snuck out of San Antonio with all three of your belts intact. You will not be giving Castano a rematch. You guys put money on that right now. That rematch does not happen.
I agree.
Charlo will say that the Russian guy that's with Main Events, I forgot his name. Kathy Duba promotes him. He's now the IBF mandatory for the 154-pound title, right? He's going to fight that fight. I don't know much about that guy. He's kind of a slow plodding Russian guy.
Is that the guy who beat Liam Smith?
No. This is another guy. You've seen him fight before. He's fought. In fact, he fought on the undercard, but he only fought an 8-rounder on the undercard.
Okay.
In San Antonio, it was an uneventful fight, which hence not even probably can't even remember the fight.
Yeah.
The fight's not happening, guys. The rematch will not happen. Like I said, if Charlo would have lost his belts, then yes, I'm getting my rematch like he did against Harrison. He's not fighting Castano anytime soon. Castano knows it, this is a shame because I think Castano is the rightful 154-pound undisputed title. Don't get me wrong. It was a good fight. It was a competitive fight, but a fight can be competitive and still be won clearly by one fighter.
Yes.
And I kept seeing all these excuses from the apologists for the Charlo brothers or Jamel saying, well, he hurt Castano more than Castano hurt him. It's like, that's true. He hurt him on 2 or 3 occasions, but that doesn't, unless you knock him down, that doesn't guarantee you more than a 10-9 round. Yeah. It doesn't. I mean, I've seen some rounds where guys were out on their feet and they still call it a 10-9 round. So I think Jermel's thing was, well, I hurt him more, so I should win the fight based on the fact that I hurt him more. That's ridiculous. That's like somebody fighting a 10-round fight, dropping the other guy in the first round. The other guy gets up and wins all 9 rounds decisively, and the guy who knocked the other guy down said, well, I won the fight because I knocked you down. Dude, they're scored round by round. 10-point system.
You're right. I mean, that's like I said. I mean, that's like playing a baseball game, and one team hitting more home runs than the other team, but the other team still scoring more points.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter.
Your analogy is better than mine.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the dynamics of the fight. It matters who lands the more punches, the more telling punches, who controlled the action. Derek James had to be if he had hair, he probably would have been pulling out in the corner because everything he was telling Jamel to do, Jamel wasn't listening. And the number one thing he had to do in order to be successful against Brian Castano, if there was a way to be successful with his style, was to keep his back off the goddamn rope. He couldn't do that. He was fighting off his back foot the entire fight. So there negated his power in most of the senses. For some reason, he was very, very, very tentative going inside, which tells me Brian Castano might have hit him with something and kind of woke him up a little bit. So Jermell was being a little bit more tentative. I think that's the reason why he wasn't like, trying to, instigate the action right off the bat.
Well, yeah, he was cautious. I mean, because
Very cautious.
Very cautious.
I think it might have been that fourth round I think it was the fourth round when he got caught with that left hook and almost dropped him. And he got hit with a flurry of punches after that. He probably
you
said,
know what? In that punch, when you go back and actually watch that punch, those ropes held him up because he really looked like he was. If those ropes weren't there, he would have went straight down.
yeah, it's like his rear end bounced off the second rope from the top or something like that, or third rope from the top. It was very strange.
Well,
but
I think the bigger question is with Charlo, with the situation and that he's in right now, where you say, and I agree with you, bro. I don't see him giving Brian Castano, but if he doesn't, he's going to lose those titles. So then those titles are going to be up for the highest bidder. Obviously, it'd be possibly Castano fighting against, you said, the Russian guy, maybe Tim Zhu against him. Who knows?
Well, Jermell has a mandatory against the Russian guy. Okay. And if I know Kathy Duba, she's going to exercise that.
Yeah.
Or they're going to throw this ridiculous amount of money as step-aside money, and the PBC is not going to be, or TGB or whoever's not going to be able to pay it, or not be willing to. They can pay it, but they're not going to be willing to pay it. So Jermell will fight the Russian guy. Castano goes off and fights. They're saying possibly Tim Zhu, but it all depends on when that fight takes place. Because now I'm hearing that they're in heavy negotiations right now for Tim Zhu to fight Tony Harrison for his next fight. Ooh. And then the fight at the end of the year, they're talking about that fight happening in September. Zhu versus Harrison.
I want to swing around back to that one, because that's an interesting matchup. Even though Tony Harrison did look great, that's still a very dangerous fight on any side. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Tim Zhu is a streaking guy. But getting back to what I was saying, there was a narrative that kept being spoken by both the older brother, Jamal, and Jamel. Jamal in his fight, when he was fighting against Montiel, and Jamel. I know that family's important. Don't get me wrong. But it's this cautionary tale that's happening with the Charlo brothers, where it's like, we can't lose at this point. We got to do this for our families. Of course, every fighter's doing that for their families. But at some point, you got to understand, you're going to have to take those risks that made you that dynamic aspect in boxing that you are today. If you completely ignore it and go into this very, cautious,
almost like a defensive mode, right?
Yeah, this Floyd Mayweather, whatever you want to call it, kind of, it's not going to work. The one thing that people loved about the Charlos was their attitude, and the fact that they were so unpredictable in the ring. They could be looking terrible, and all of a sudden a big punch come out of nowhere. That big punch never came, because I don't think Charlo never wanted to throw it, because he knew he'd have to put himself in a vulnerable position against Castano, something I think he was worried about. Jamel's got bigger problems and worried about defending his title. Jamel's got some type of issue going on in his head right now. He's still very competitive with his brother. You could see it. After that fight, I guarantee you, rather than him think, God damn, I might have lost that fight, he's probably thinking to himself, man, I did worse than my brother. Stop that shit, man. Yeah. His brother's the only one that's going to make him get back to where he needs to be. They need to get rid of that competitive bullshit. Dude.
Yeah, his brother was vehemently defending his brother's performance that night. I mean,
unlike his brother, unlike Jamel, what he did against Jamal, when Jamal had a subpar showing against Montiel, he was very critical of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unfortunate, because I honestly feel that Jamal is holding the last bits of fabric that are holding that relationship together. Because when that implodes, you will see Jamal go on to be successful in some right. Jamel is going to implode, and he's just going to sink like he's got weights on his ankles.
He's going to implode. Yeah. I don't know. I think prior to that fight, I even said it. Hey, if Jermell goes out there and looks devastating, you really got to consider him pound for pound material. I'm not saying top 5, but you got to put him in the list somewhere up there, because he has one, not no more. Because he, I don't know, man.
And it's no strike against Castano, because I think he's a top guy. He really, if anything, everybody's so focused on why Charlo looked bad, but nobody was focused on the fact that Castano looked so good.
Yeah. And I thought Castano could have done things even to make the night easier for himself. There were times where he didn't put his foot on the gas, where he was a little hesitant, and you're thinking everything you're doing up until this point, your activity is what's winning you this fight. When you sit back and you wait to punch, and you let Jermell be first, that's when you lose a round, or a segment of a round, which will sway the judges. You have to be first. And I said that prior to the fight. You have to be first. take the fight to him, and on the rounds he took the fight to him, he clearly won those rounds.
What do you think about that, Eric?
Just with their activity, punches thrown, punches landed.
Eric, what do you think about that?
I agree. I mean, I can't. I don't have much more to say. You guys have basically said it all. Yeah, no, I agree 100%.
So since AJ, I know you said you wanted to kind of circle back to, well, let's just stay in the 154-pound division.
You know, I hate that circle back.
I know.
Okay, so let's revisit what you said. Yeah. You said you want to talk about. We'll stay in the 154-pound division. Okay, where does Jermell go from here? Does he fight the Russian guy? What happens to him? Does he come back and look devastating, or is some of the shine further off him, and maybe guys are like, well, this guy's maybe not that devastating of a puncher. Yes, he's a big guy. You know, it's a miracle how he sucks down to 154 pounds. But you know, maybe he just has the ability to do that, but doesn't really keep the power. I don't know. Maybe, you know, he looks like he can knock you out with one punch, but I don't really think he can.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think a lot of the shine has been removed from Charlo in a lot of ways, because the one thing, especially about Jermell, that made him a very kind of like the guy that was the most dangerous guy at 154 pounds is the things that he did against guys like Erickson, Lubin, and others was that one hitter quitter. He didn't show that against Brian Castano. It's not to say that Brian Castano doesn't have a great chin, but there was something amiss. I'm going to say it again. Nothing against Brian Castano. I think he did everything he had to do. I had him winning the fight, but can Jermall Charlo improve on this performance? Absolutely. I mean, anybody could improve on a performance, but the problem is, so will Castano. Castano's going to go back and look at this and do exactly what you said, bro. I took my foot off the pedal on this round and this round and this round. I don't see him doing it. I see that pressure being even more intense. And barring walking into a big punch, I think Castano ends up, you know, putting it on Charlo, possibly stopping him mid to late rounds.
I tell you this, you know what really makes me in here? Okay, and I'm going to go back. Maybe I'm going to show a little bit my bias in this, but I remember when Jaime Munguia had some tough fights, right? What was the first thing they always said? Well, he gets hit too easy. He's too easy to hit. He's too easy to hit.
Talk about guy gets hit too easy. Jermell
got hit. Both brothers. I mean, Jermall a few weeks earlier, his face was worse for wear against Montiel. And Montiel didn't land half the punches that Castano landed, if you really want to go back and look at fight stats. So why is nobody talking about the suspect defense? Why is nobody questioning Ronnie Shields? Why is nobody questioning Derek James? I'm telling you, is it only guys like Jaime Munguia or guys, you know, I don't get it. I don't get it. I mean, there's such a double standard in boxing. Right away, strategies start getting broken down and scrutinized and picked apart little by little. It's like these Monday morning quarterbacks I see all over social media talking about football, and none of them have ever even looked at a play script in their entire life. But they think I'll tell
you what really got under my skin was the statements made by Terence Crawford. Let me tell you something right now. I understand they both train with the same guy, but let me tell you something right now. In what world does Terence Crawford think he's got the right to say what he said against Jermell Charlo, against a legitimate champion in Brian Castano, when Terence Crawford can go out and have a subpar performance, almost get beaten by a nobody in Kavalukas, and he could just scratch it off as you know. Yeah,
you're referring to the comments where he said about basically you're not pound for pound.
That. You know, I mean, the bottom line is,
I mean, I agree with Crawford, but Crawford really doesn't have the room to speak. Anybody else saying that in the top 10, it would be more, it'd have more validity to it. He don't need to say anything.
Well, I think Crawford's got a bigger problem though. We know Jermell Charlo personally, how he is. Jermell Charlo is a loose cannon. He sees Terence Crawford at an event. Jermell's that kind of guy. He's that kind of guy that will go after you and say, dude, so what were you saying? And he'll do something about it. Jermell is a no-nonsense. They're no-nonsense Texas boys. They don't mess around.
I will admit that. As a matter of fact, I think they're more dangerous outside the ring than inside the ring.
Absolutely.
That's just what I think. Because with inside the confines of a ring, you have rules and a referee. Outside I tell you, Terence Crawford better not cross paths with either Charlo brother anytime soon. Sorry, that's what I think.
Hey, so Mike, real quick, the guy you were talking about possibly the defending against the mandatory against Charlo, is it this guy Bakram Tazalev.
Yeah. It begins with an M. Yeah,
Which is mind-boggling to me that this guy
I'll be
would
right
even
back.
be rated where he's at. You know, his biggest victory to date, you know, was that win over a guy who's completely shot. And remember Kieran E. Gray that we really liked a few years ago and stuff. I mean, it was like an 8-round decision. So I don't even know how this guy's even getting any kind of a ranking. You know, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I don't know, but that's the guy. Like I said, that's the mandatory. That's the guy that Jermel will probably fight.
He's a big kid, though. You know,
no, he's tall. Yeah, he's tall.
6 foot tall, 19-0, 14 knockouts. Like I said, you can't always judge a book by its cover. You know what I'm saying? You just never know. I mean,
probably has a good amateur background, but I mean, he didn't like the few fights that I've seen and the highlights that I've seen. He's not exactly, you know, I mean, he doesn't look half as exciting or half as skilled as Castano. So,
yeah.
I mean, and like I said, we all thought Castano had a slim chance in this fight last week, but we didn't think he was going to put the performance he did. We didn't think he was going to have that kind of performance, which he did. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, if that fight does take place against the Russian, the mandatory, that probably won't be till after the fall sometime. The Charlos are not in any hurry to get back in the ring right away. They'll go through the months of August, September, October, maybe November, December. We see that fight. Meanwhile, Tim Tszyu is supposed to be negotiating to fight by late August, early September. I think it's going to be Tony Harrison because he wants that mandatory shot against Castano before the 2021 is up. So he can't look past Tony Harrison and go, okay, I'm going to get this guy out of here and then I'm going to fight Castano. I don't think he'll do that.
No.
But you had some things you wanted to say about that.
Well, yeah, fight. I mean, in the situation with Tim Tszyu, like I said, even though he's a little bit more mature than what I considered a future star, he's already past that. He's even past a prospect. He's now a contender.
Yeah, he's a contender now.
And he's becoming a seasoned contender in a sense, to where he's one of those guys where, you know, you're going to have to eventually either negotiate to go around him or you got to go through him, which means you got to match up against him. Tony Harrison's an interesting bout because Tony Harrison's one of these hot and cold guys. You never know what you're going to get. You know, he can come off of a very bad performance against somebody, and then the very next performance, he looks devastating.
And he's coming off of a bad performance against Perella.
He's coming off of a performance where I still thought it was close. Tony had a lot of stuff I know going on. I mean, we'll never understand. Losing a father. Tony Harrison's father was the post, was the nail, was the fabric that held Team Tiger together. So it's really tough to really understand what was going on with Tony in his head. The fact that Tony even fought this fight says a lot about him. I don't think he cared if he won or lost this fight. I think no matter what happens, he said that his dad said, you always go through with the fight. Don't be one of those guys that just don't show up to work, finish the job, whether you do a good job or you don't do a good job. He did it for his dad.
And that was my point. My point was he had a bad performance, so his next one could be a great performance.
Well, he did this one for his dad just to get by because he had his dad's memory. The next one might just be for him. And we know what happens when Tony Harrison comes out for all about him.
The one thing that I think we agree on, and we talked about it after his last fight, was the lack of a decent corner. I think he had his brother in there working his corner. Man, at no point did his brother ever give him any kind of direction, any kind of urgency. Or, I mean, if you remember back to that fight, he kept telling his brother, yeah, you're doing good. You just keep doing what you're doing. It's like he was not looking good in that fight. Yeah. I mean, it was a close fight. I mean, I actually, if I would have had, I was fine with the draw. But if I would have had to pick somebody life or death, I would have gave it to Perella. I thought Perella did more than Tony did in that fight. And maybe that was a one-off, like you said. Maybe that's Tony Harrison just having a bad performance coming off of the loss of his father. But against Tim Tszyu, and if the fight does take place in Australia, he'll have to be on point. He'll have to have a good camp. He'll have to be ready. Can't be no distractions. He's going to have to really, because Tim Tszyu is, you know, the kid is focused and patient. He didn't show that much patience against his last opponent, Stevie Sparks, because I think he was frustrated because he really didn't want to fight Stevie Sparks. He really wanted Michael Zarafa in the ring with him. Obviously, Zarafa used COVID as an excuse to get out of that fight. So,
but I tell you right now that it ended up being a good bout, even though Tim Tszyu dominated and did what he did. He was a little shaky in the first round. I think he did that. Like we said, we compared it to Gennady against Kell Brook, just trying to go for the home run hit. Once he kind of settled down and did what he did, you saw how good Tim Tszyu really is. But we spoke a lot about Stevie Sparks and how impressive he was. This kid's impressive. you know, a guy coming up, you know, I believe he was a junior welterweight or welterweight. I mean, the kid's
He's a welterweight.
yeah, he's going to shake some things up. The kid's got skill. He's got size, you know.
Well, he's a tough kid too, and this won't hurt him. I mean, the referee stopped it, and those body shots got him. After that second one dropped him, he saw that he probably winced in pain. And the referee said, "Okay, enough's enough." You know, he came in and did his job. He saved the show. Probably was well compensated for it. He did his job. You could tell Tim Tszyu was disappointed. It's like, you know, the crowd was the capacity was chopped in half the week of the fight. So a lot of people that were attending probably got refunds on tickets and whatnot. So either way, I think much like Tony Harrison will be up more for his next fight, I think Tim Tszyu will as well. That's a fight I'm actually excited to see. And I got to be honest with you, I'm excited to see it because there is that's a true pick 'em fight right now. No,
it is in a lot of ways, because it was ironic that you said what you said about Tony Harrison's brother, because I follow Tony Harrison on Twitter, and probably about a week, and I just re-looked it up again right now, see if I can see it. There's a picture of him with Virgil Hunter and stuff like this. So I see there being a change in the camp of Tony Harrison going into a fight, especially a fight of this magnitude against a guy like Tim Tszyu that, let's be honest, Tony Harrison can't lose this fight. A loss here would be devastating to his career in so many ways. So a change within his camp, whether it's Virgil Hunter or somebody that he knows, I definitely see there being a more seasoned trainer working with Tony Harrison going into this fight since the loss of his father.
Yeah.
You know, well, Tony needs that. He needs that feedback that he wasn't getting from his brother. His dad was a no-nonsense guy. He knew how to talk to his son because he'd done it for so long. No knock on his brother. His brother did the best he could, but there's something
he was out of his brother was out of his league. He just
you know.
Let's talk about so let's go ahead and jump into, we're about halfway through the show. Then let's go ahead and talk about what we saw yesterday afternoon. Sadly, this fight was not picked up by any of the networks here. It wasn't picked up by DAZN
I have no idea.
Or whatever. BT Sports showed the fight. We're talking about JOYCE versus Carlos Takam. Took place in I'm not sure exactly where, in the UK.
In the UK,
you know, JOYCE obviously a few months ago coming off of that big win over Daniel Dubois coming off the big win over Daniel Dubois. Dubois heavily favored in that fight because he's been knocking everybody out, young, strong, knockout artist, kind of like, you know, a la Mike Tyson. JOYCE goes in there and with that motor just broke Dubois down, broke his eye socket, and ended up stopping him in the 10th round, right? It was the 10th round. Well, in this fight, first off, let me say this. I tell you, it's so hard to listen to the UK announcers call the fight. I don't understand what these guys are looking at when they're watching a fight. Because if you would have listened to just their commentary, and let's say you couldn't see it, but you could just hear what was going on, you would have think that Carlos Takam was totally just outclassing and devastating, just beating JOYCE. And that was not the fight that I saw. I saw that there were some close rounds. Takam, the first 3-4 rounds, landed the bigger one shot at a time, the bigger shots. But JOYCE just kept coming. Jab, 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 right, jab. His pressure is relentless. The guy's robotic. He's slower than molasses, but he's got a goddamn freaking titanium chin, and he keeps coming. What do you guys think? Eric, did you get to watch that fight?
I did not get to watch that fight, but I know exactly what you're talking about with those UK announcers.
Oh, God.
I have to mute it half the time. I mean, you just can't hear it. You can't.
One of them was trainer Ben Davison. He was like a guest announcer for that. Ben Davison, you know, who trained Tyson Fury and whatnot. And obviously, he knows JOYCE very well. But I don't know, man. They just see things a little bit different. It's like the referees ref the fights a little bit different than our.
It's almost like they don't want to have a bad fight, so they try to find something within the guy who they know is going to lose. Bright points within the fight to keep the viewership up.
No, you know how we can't stand it when Timothy Bradley and Andre Ward, it doesn't matter what fight we're watching, they always allude to Terence Crawford. Well, these guys just couldn't keep Anthony Joshua's name out of their mouth. Anthony Joshua's got business with Alexander Usyk in September. I don't know why they're talking about Joshua and JOYCE, a potential fight between those two.
I'm gonna tell you something about this fight that I really surprising to me. I'm not going to sit here and say that Joe Joyce is the most talented guy. He could be a little bit brutish. He's a little bit one-dimensional at times. But I'm going to tell you something that I really, really found impressive in Joe Joyce from his last performance, from his last two performances to this performance. He really lived up to what he calls himself, the juggernaut. He came in with this very, you saw he had this, almost like this smug kind of, something you don't usually see in Joe Joyce. Almost like this attitude, and I liked it. Joe Joyce, you know, he braided his hair. He looked different because Joe Joyce, let's be honest. I was trying to think of the guy today. Do you remember the heavyweight? I think he fought against Vladimir Klitschko. He actually went to college, and they used to call him the bookkeeper or something like this. God, I can't think of his name right now. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't.
I'll come up with it. Well, he reminds me of that guy. But I'm going to tell you now, one thing I was impressed with Joe Joyce was his punch placement, his punch choices. The accuracy may not have been the fastest punches. He didn't waste a lot of punches. And whatever he was throwing at Carlos Takam, it was going right through him.
Yeah, when he caught him, especially when he caught him with that left hook, I think he started kind of taking the control of the fighter on the fourth round. But in that sixth round, when he caught him with that hook and stumbled, Takam almost went down. It wasn't even the hardest punch. But Joe Joyce, they're not beautiful. They're not pretty punches. He's not pretty to watch. You know what I mean? I mean, if at
times when he went to finish, I was really impressed. I mean, I liked it. I think
when he went for the finish in the sixth round, I mean, he just let his hands go.
Yeah.
I tell you what, man, he's patient. He knows what he has. He knows what he is and he knows what he's not. When you were talking about his swagger and coming in with, you know, the music and everything, I got to be honest with you. I'm so happy that Joe Joyce is getting this kind of attention. And it took him to relocate, leave the United States, leave Ringstar Promotions, go back, sign with Frank Warren, with Queensberry. It took him to do that, to really shine. Because granted, we don't know if he's ever going to win the title. I think he's very capable of winning a world title. I really do. Just based on the fact that he's got a granite chin and he just keeps coming. His energy level is off the charts. Even when you think he gets caught with a good shot and he's going to lay back, he just resets and just keeps coming. I'm happy that the kid is, like I said, I'm happy that he's getting his just due, that he's getting arenas and they're chanting his name, because he's a great ambassador for the sport. You listen to him talk, his pre-fight interviews, his post-fight interviews, there's no need for trash talk. There's no need for, he's just a very well-educated, smart,
I figured out the fighter, and it reminds me so much of Joe Joyce because he too was a guy who was an educated boxer and a great ambassador for the sport. That was Calvin Brock. Remember Calvin Brock?
Oh, Calvin Brock, yeah.
Reminds me a lot of Joe Joyce, you know, the way that they fight and stuff. But Calvin Brock was the guy who fought for the title and was very competitive. He ended his career at 31-2 as a pro. You know, he was a big hitter like Joe Joyce.
Calvin Brock, yeah.
Calvin Brock. I mean, you know.
That's right.
So he reminds me a lot. So Joe Joyce to me is kind of like the 2021 version of Calvin Brock, and that's not a knock on Joe Joyce because I think Calvin Brock was an exceptional heavyweight. You know what I'm saying? He just,
you know, his chin didn't really hold up, and I think when he lost to Klitschko, I think his chin didn't hold up. I think Joe Joyce's chin will hold up against pretty much
because he's a bigger guy too. You know, Calvin Brock was only 6'3".
Daniel Dubois is knocking everybody out like highlight reel knockouts, and he never, as far as I'm concerned, he never even really phased Joyce. Joyce took some punches from it, and Takam too. Takam's a big puncher. Takam he's like a little modern day Joe Frazier. I mean, bigger than Joe Frazier, but you know he's got some heavy hands. And Joyce took him, shake his head, and just kept coming. You gotta
go back and watch that fighter. Like I said, I mean, for some reason, Joe Joyce is one of these guys that, you know, the odds makers keep betting against him. The commentators aren't in favor of him. Maybe he just doesn't have enough shine. But I think the helmet worked. I think the little bit of attitude. I think the braids work. Expect to see even more going into Joe Joyce's next thing. I think they're priming him for a world title shot. And I'm going to be honest with you, based on what I'm seeing Joe Joyce do right now and stuff, as long as he doesn't get caught by something reckless, he's got a possibility. Don't be surprised if a year from now, Joe Joyce is a heavyweight champion of the world.
The only fighter that I really think could test his chin, honest to God, would be a Deontay Wilder. If Deontay Wilder landed, or maybe an F.A. Ajagba, if they landed cleanly on the chin or on the temple, then we'll see how his chin really holds up. But any of the other heavyweights, Joshua, Fury, Usyk, Dillian White. I don't see them. I don't see them.
Yeah.
I see him walking through their punches.
I still think he passed a major test. I mean, let's be honest. Go back and look at what Deontay Wilder's done, and go back and look at what F.A. Joppa's done. Go back and look at what Daniel Dubois has done against solid guys. I mean, knocking these guys completely through the rope. Daniel Dubois is a monstrous puncher, and he couldn't dent Joyce.
Yeah.
So the thing is, I think honestly, a fight with Deontay Wilder, with the exception of maybe that big, punch, where he might land something like how he did against
Luis Ortiz or something.
Like Ortiz or the guy that was a quarterback at one time.
Brazil.
But there's a difference in Joe Joyce. Joe Joyce, his punch placement, the accuracy. I'm going to say it again. It's that accuracy. It reminds me a lot of what Tyson Fury does. I think I would honestly lean towards Joe Joyce as long as he can avoid those wild punches from Deontay Wilder. The accumulation of punches will just get to Wilder because Wilder doesn't have the best defense out there and stuff.
No. That's what I'm saying, man. They're the only two people that I think could. And they say styles make fights. They're the only two styles where I think could be an issue.
I think Joe Joyce I think he's in a great position right now. I think the world is his oyster. I would love to see a potential bout, like you said, whether it's going to be maybe they'll match him up against a guy like King Kong Ortiz, Andy Ruiz. Andy Ruiz, to me, honestly, poses very little threat to Joe Joyce based on his stature, his non-punching power. They for some reason they think Andy Ruiz is Mike Tyson.
No, Joe Joyce walks through Andy Ruiz.
Yeah,
just sticks that jab in his face all fight long and stops him. Busts his face up. He'll bust him up.
Exactly.
He'll bust him up.
I mean, it'd be an interesting.
Now, going back to the fight. Listen, I think the conclusion was already going to be decided. I do think the referee jumped in a little early. I mean, Takam got hit with multiple punches, wasn't firing back. But I think if you're the referee, I think you let him either take a knee or you let him hit the ground before you analyze it. Now I get it. The referee's like he's not punching back, and Joe Joyce landed I don't know how many punches consecutively with no fight back. But I do think Takam's history, that's the kind of fighter he is. I mean, he'll take 10 to give 1. So I think, and it's the only thing that kind of tainted his victory a little bit. But once again, I think it was a foregone conclusion. I think Joyce is going to get him.
I think the referee was making his decision based on the fact that you got to look at Carlos Takam's career, and he's a very likable guy. If you ever see him talk, it's like he's not a bad person at all. But he's been in some wars in his life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Go back to his fights even against guys like Craig Lewis, his fight against Jerry Forrest, Derek Chisora, Anthony Joshua. This guy's been in Joseph Parker. I just think at this point in his career, he's getting up there in the years at 40. They don't want to see him really, really hurt because he's a guy who can still do things. He wasn't throwing punches back, and we don't want to see another, situation, where we have Gerald McClellan, a guy with a great personality like Carlos Takam, end up going out in a stretcher and stuff because it only takes one punch, and he wasn't throwing punches back. I don't want to come down on the ref, but I think he made the right decision. You
guys hearing a little bit of feedback? I'm hearing some feedback again. You hearing
it? I think
it's
Eric's.
No. Eric, do you have the volume up on like your phone or anything? Because I'm hearing us talk.
How about that? Better?
Yeah, I don't hear it now. Yeah.
I don't hear it now. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Well, I can't hear you. My phone's not. Artillery ears. Yeah.
I got drummer's ears, dude. But believe me, they're not much better, dude.
Yeah, I got bass player's ears. My ears.
I meet new clients. A little bit louder than both of those items.
I know.
I meet new clients, and I was with some clients today. I said, "Hey, I apologize if I'm talking a little bit loud." I said, "I don't hear."
I got this. Oh, you know what? Hey, real quick, guys, before we get up doing anything, real quick. I'm gonna. I wanted to have Colt wanted to give his take because it's his birthday coming up. He wanted to give his take on the Errol Spence Manny Pacquiao fight. If you guys don't mind.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Now, go ahead. Keep talking about the Joe Joyce thing real quick.
Okay. So, let's talk about this then. Since we're in the heavyweight division, I don't know if you guys heard this, but just a couple of days ago, the Robert Helenius Adam Kovnatski fight got postponed. I think Helenius suffered an injury, and we talked about that a few weeks ago, AJ, about he just is not a durable guy.
Yeah,
his durability is a question, man.
Yeah.
So that's a bummer because that's a fight I was looking forward to. Yeah. That was coming up, right?
And that was Robert Helenius and
Kovnatski, the rematch.
Yeah,
It
that's
got
unfortunate.
postponed now a couple months. Helenius got hurt. I don't know the extent of the injury, but obviously it was enough for them to postpone the fight. So that fight, there's another fight that kind of, got kicked to the curb.
What fights, Michael, do we have to look forward to here soon?
Well,
I know we got the Pacquiao.
Next week we've got some good fights. Next week we've got some fights coming from, I believe they're on Showtime, right? There's, I read it earlier. Who is it? Well, we got August the 14th. That's coming up right here in Carson. That's Rigondeaux versus Casimero. AJ, what happened with that, by the way?
Who's that, bro?
What happened with Donaire and Casimero? I know that there was some disrespecting of the wife going on or something, and Donaire
I'll tell you
pulled out of
exactly.
the fight. What happened in that fight?
Real quick.
Why does that
Guys,
fight?
Looks
Guys,
like
I'm so sorry to interrupt. The room just got done, so I've got to go.
No problem, bro. Thank you.
Sorry,
Hey, bro.
guys.
We'll see you on Tuesday, brother.
Eric the Red out. Sorry, guys.
No problem.
No problem, brother. So we lose Eric the Red, and we pulled in Cosmic Colt. What's up, Colt?
What's up?
Hey,
How
Cole.
you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good.
For people that don't know, this is my son, Cosmic Colt. He's we're gonna talk a little bit, but real quick, before we get to you, Colt, we talk about the Manny Pacquiao, Errol Spence. I know you had your take on it. You've been doing some work. I'll tell you what happened, Mike. Casimero said some pretty derogatory things about Donaire's wife. One of the things, I'm not going to really get into what was said. I saw Donaire, as you know, he's one of these people. He's not a very disrespectful. Once again, he's an ambassador for the sport.
No, he is. Yeah.
I heard somebody the other day that was trying to tear apart, Inoue and his victory over Donaire, saying Donaire is, used goods. Let me tell you something right now. The reason why Donaire did this, Donaire wouldn't want, there's nothing more that he wants than to beat the shit out of Casimero and take his title and send him back to the Philippines to dig holes. But he said, you know what? He said, you know what? I'm not going to give this guy an opportunity in any way, shape, or form. It's not that I don't think I could beat him. I'm not going to give him an opportunity to make that kind of money. So now Casimero is going to fight against Rigondeaux. And I'm going to tell you something right now. Do not count out Rigondeaux going into this fight. Casimero is so fixated on his bout with Donaire, he doesn't even care who Rigondeaux is. I'm telling you, man, I smell upset a brewing right there.
And I think it's only an upset because of where Rigondeaux is in his, not his professional career, but just in his when it comes to his age. I mean, he's not a young man anymore. But I read something where he's basically saying these guys are overlooking me. They're thinking that I'm done and that my punching power is no longer existent. I gotta agree with you, man.
Yeah, we'll jump into that. We'll talk about. So let me go ahead and do so. So Cosmic Colt, go ahead and give us your take on the upcoming Manny Pacquiao versus Errol Spence Jr. in the big mega fight.
So I watched this interview and the host, she had asked Manny Pacquiao why he would choose Errol Spence, and he had basically said that he wanted to basically give a good fight, a real fight to the fans. And then Errol Spence had also said that he had been saying other people had been wanting to fight Manny Pacquiao next and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who are you favoring going into this fight? Are you favoring the youth and the strength of Errol Spence, the experience and the speed of Manny Pacquiao?
I'm honestly going for Manny Pacquiao because he's honestly really fast. During the interview too, the host had also said that is Errol Spence prepared for Manny Pacquiao's fast punches and how he would train and stuff.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be a fight. I mean, if you look at Errol Spence's last several opponents, AJ, there's nobody that's on par with Manny Pacquiao in terms of sheer speed, a hand, and a foot. I mean, Manny Pacquiao, that's the one thing that the man still has. I mean, he still is lightning fast on his feet.
I'll go back to the thing. It's like when they were talking to Sean Porter, and they were talking to Sean Porter, and Sean Porter made a comment because he sparred with Manny so many times.
Yeah.
But he obviously had that tough fight against Errol Spence Jr., which I'm going to be honest with you. I went back and I rewatched that fight and rescored that fight. I'm going to tell you right now, scoring that fight for Sean Porter in his favor would not be out of the realm of possibility. That was that close of a fight, I think. I think that knockdown in the 11th round
where his glove touched the ground,
pivotal, for Errol Spence at that point. But the one thing Sean Porter said is the same thing, and he basically conveyed the same sentiments that Chris Algieri said. It's not that Manny Pacquiao is a stronger guy. Errol Spence is obviously the stronger guy. It's the speed in which the punches come. You don't expect them, so your body's not properly prepared. You get hit. Next thing you know, you open your eyes and you're on the ground.
Or you get hit again. Yeah.
That's what you got to understand going into this fight. Manny possesses that, something that Errol's got the power too, you know what I'm saying? But Manny's proven it. People keep going back to what happened with him and Marquez. Well, since Marquez, Manny's fought some pretty big guys, and nobody's done that since. It was just the night, you know.
And as much as I was rooting for Marquez on that fight, I have to be honest and say that I think Marquez had a little bit of a pharmaceutical help in that fight.
Manny was beating the hell out of him. He was tearing him to pieces.
You know what I'm saying? If you look at that Marquez on that night, that Marquez looked like a little mini bodybuilder. He looked like Shane Mosley when Shane Mosley fought Oscar the second time. These muscles just came out of nowhere. You know, read between the lines, people.
So Colt, real quick. So your favorite Manny Pacquiao then, huh?
Yeah, but like during the interview, another thing he said, like the host had asked Manny, "Are you overconfident in some fights?" And he said no. But then she had said that like Freddie Roach had said like one time he had like been like after he had called Errol Spence about the fight, he had been training like as hard as like he was doing for the Cota fight, and then he was getting a little concerned for him, even though she had just said, "Are you overconfident in fights?" And then he said no.
Yeah, that's
like that's what I'm confused about. Is like if you're saying you're overconfident in a fight, but then you're training really hard. So I think he may be a little overconfident, but he just wants to like give like a good fight and like not be like, how do you say it? Like,
yeah, if Manny, what you're saying, if Manny
maybe not like it prepared enough, like acting like you're like all prepared and stuff, but you're really not prepared. Like he just wants to be ready for the fight, I guess.
Yeah, if you're training as hard as they say he's training, then he's going to be ready for the fight. He'll have no excuses. Manny's a durable guy
because
too.
they like called him like 5 months ago. Like they called Errol Spence 5 months ago about this.
Yeah.
So he had like enough time to like know that like who he was fighting.
So he's probably been preparing, watching tape. I mean, Manny knows what he's doing. I mean, far too much credit gets, and I'm not. It's not a knock on Freddie Roach, but far too much credit gets given to Freddie Roach. And I understand with this condition and stuff. You know, you want to find things to commend the guy for, but far too much credit is given to him. I think Manny at this stage in his career knows what he needs to do. Doesn't matter who he's got in his corner. Doesn't matter if it's Boo Boy. Doesn't matter if it's Marvin Smoothie. It doesn't matter if it's Freddie Roach. He knows what he needs to do. This is a guy that's been boxing professionally for 25 years, right?
Well, I think there's a bigger one of the questions that hasn't been asked. It is a real simple question. I know they always kind of push back to Errol Spence being the physically bigger guy, Errol Spence possessing the strength, having the youth, you know, being on the street. But the one thing that they keep forgetting is that this situation, being against a guy of this level of an Errol Spence, young, strong, undefeated. Manny's been there several times. When has Errol ever been in with a guy that's got the experience, the unpredictable power, and just the overall what he brings? He brings this energy to the ring. When has Errol Spence ever faced something like that?
Yeah. Did you guys see the interview recently with Freddie Roach where he feels that Keith Thurman's a better fighter than Spence? He just feels that I mean, I don't know verbatim, but I read the interview and he feels that Keith Thurman, I think he feels, hey, we were able to get through and beat Keith Thurman. And you know, it was a tough fight. I mean, it got tougher as the rounds progressed.
I wouldn't say Spence is a better fighter than Keith Thurman because I think
no. Freddie's saying Thurman's a better fighter than Spence.
I could see that because I think Keith Thurman's a more rounded fighter than Errol Spence in a lot of ways.
He's quicker.
You know? He's quicker.
He
hits harder.
He moves better.
Exactly. So Errol Spence tends to be a little bit, stationary. He does kind of sometimes fight off his back foot, but he does put himself. Go back and watch the Sean Porter fight. Look at the hooks, the lefts that Sean Porter was landing on Errol Spence. I mean, he's there to be hit at times. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, no knock on Errol Spence. I think he's the best in the cream of the crop of the welterweight division, but he's going against a living legend. And when you go against a guy like Manny Pacquiao, I think what Errol Spence has to do is not worry about making a statement and just make sure he's got a solid game plan to fight for 12 rounds because Manny's coming to fight for 12 rounds.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think, I'm going to be honest, I think Manny's best chance in this fight is to get Spence out of there. Because I think once you get into rounds 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, I just think like there's certain things that you can't fight. And now, granted, Manny's in great shape and he's very well rested. He hasn't fought in nearly 2 years. But you know, he's 42 years old now. The body will start to wear down a little bit, like it did against Thurman. I mean, he started to slow down a little bit against Thurman, and Thurman was able to crawl back into the fight. I still think Manny won the fight, but Thurman actually made it close there at the end. But for Spence is, to me, Spence is like a welterweight version of Joe Joyce. Not flashy, not exciting, not fast, but just keeps coming. So if Manny could do something to really, like if he, you know, like what did they say?
Look what he did against Cotto, you know?
Yeah, I would just go in there and just like, because Cotto was a physically bigger guy than Manny as well.
Bigger, stronger, younger. I mean, he you know, Cotto was.
But one thing, like Spence, one thing Cotto did not have the advantage of was speed. Exactly. Just like Spence. Spence is a good fighter. He's not a fast fighter. He's not real pretty.
None of these guys are fast when you look at probably Keith Thurman's probably one of the quicker welterweights, and his speed couldn't keep up with Manny Pacquiao. Guys like Terence Crawford and Errol Spence, and even, you know, don't have that kind of speed. Go back and watch Sean Porter's fight against Errol Spence. One of the things that really bothers Spence was Sean Porter's a little faster than people give him credit for. He throws these, even though sometimes they're wild and erratic, these combinations, but they come out of nowhere, but they're fast. And it's very reminiscent of Manny Pacquiao sometimes, where he kind of digs his feet in the ground and just starts throwing punches, and Errol was getting caught by punches. You never know.
Yeah.
You know?
And Sean Porter is not a knock on Sean Porter, but the way his punch placement is and the way he throws, it's just to me, it's like it's just a crapshoot. He just throws, and if something lands, it lands. There's nothing precision or precise about the way Sean Porter fights. He just fights with activity and physicality, and he'll throw and throw and throw, and if something lands, it lands. Manny Pacquiao throws and throws and throws, but with pinpoint precision, and he knows what he's seeing. He's been in with the best. Yeah,
he's been with the best. To talk about Sean Porter, I guess they just named Sean Porter the mandatory for Terence Bud Crawford, so we're going to see where those negotiations are going to go.
The WBO mandated that fight. The WBO said, "Okay, guess what, Terence? You have to now fight. It's going to go to purse bid because Top Rank's gonna. This is going to be, by the way, this will be Bud Crawford's last fight with Top Rank.
This is going to be a complete disaster in negotiations. I don't think there's going to be a lot of wiggle room for Bud Crawford to get what he wants. I think, in a way, I think Bob Arum might even be leaning towards Porter, because I think he knows that whatever he's done for Crawford in the past, never really been appreciated. Bob's always been the guy that they go to when they say the shortcomings in Terence's career. Terence has never taken responsibility for any of his shortcomings, bad performances, bad choices, or anything. It's always Top Rank and Bob Arum. Well, you know what? This being the last fight, you're going to have to take this. You might get the money you want, not quite what you want. You're not going to be able to just give Sean Porter a couple dollars and a Milky Way and say, all right, dude, let's do this fight. Because at the end of the day, if the money's there, and if Terence Crawford still refuses to fight this fight, the writing's on the wall. It's on the wall. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I like Sean Porter in this fight for mere activity and what he brings to the fight, something that Terence Crawford's never seen. The fighters that have put pressure on Terence Crawford, the Gamboas, Junior Witter, Kavalukas, these guys, Jose Benavidez, these guys were the hardest fights for Terence Crawford to have because of that pressure. They didn't wait for Terence and let Terence get into a rhythm. If anybody knows Sean Porter, nobody's able to get into a rhythm. And if Errol Spence is unable to do it, how is Terence Crawford going to do it?
And Sean Porter is a legitimate 147 pounder. He's not a 140 pounder, 135 pounder. Yep.
Well, hey, real quick, before we bounce out of here, I want to say happy birthday coming up to my son, Cosmic Colt. He's going to be hitting the big 12, right, Colt?
What's your birthday? The 20 what?
Yeah, the 29th in about 4 days.
Oh my God. What do you want, Colt?
I'm really just wanting some. I just wanted to have like a good time with all my families and friends, and
You got it, buddy. We'll get together. We'll do something. Maybe you guys come over here, or we'll go over there.
Blessed, man. I got a boy with a heart of gold, man. He's my best buddy in the world, dude.
Yeah, he's
shooting a movie right now. But real quick, Cole, before I let you go, you got to see this trailer that he just did with this movie. It's great. it's so amazing. I'm gonna show it to you in a minute. But I think we're just about at the end, right, bro?
But hold
Yeah,
on, guys,
yeah.
just real quick. I just want to say that, like, since Errol Spence is gonna be fighting Manny Pacquiao, there's like some things that he like, can't do. Like, he can't be like one of those fighters who's gonna treat this fight like a small little, like a playground, like something that you would do for fun. Like, he has to take this seriously because like Manny Pacquiao isn't really someone you would want to mess with. He has fast punches and he will not like go easy on Errol Spence. So he really needs to like have his game like really in place. Like he has to have it like he has to be ready basically.
Yeah, so he can't overlook Manny Pacquiao then, basically.
Yeah, like he can't like underestimate his power because
Yeah.
he will yeah.
Hey, real quick, Mike. Have they talked about a venue? Is it going to be in Vegas?
You know, I don't even know where the venue is. I know the fight is taking
It won't
place
be
on
in Texas. I know that for a fact.
no August 21st. The fight's August 21st. I mean, I don't know, man, because Vegas right now, you know, I think they're talking about putting another mask mandate again in Vegas now, like they do here in LA County.
Oh, I don't think that's going to happen. Not after the thing
Yeah.
I saw the other day. I mean, as much as they want to do that and stuff, I mean, I don't want to say it on air, but people know who really run Vegas, and they're not going to afford to lose any more money. It's not
Yeah.
going to happen. So you're going to, you know, people are going to be.
I don't
waking-
know where that fight's going to be, man. I honestly, I'm guessing Vegas.
Okay, so let's say they have it, you know, T-Mobile Arena or something like this. You got to say the one thing about Manny Pacquiao and the Filipinos. You know, my sons, you know, have Filipino like my wife. They bring it. The fans are going to come. Doesn't matter if they love boxing. They love Manny. The
yeah,
Lolas, the Lolas,
yeah.
the
The other
Lolas,
364
cousins.
the other 364 days of
They
the
don't
year,
give a
could
shit.
care less. But on fight day, they're all boxing fans.
And they take up the best seats. I mean, they got the rice and the adobo and the lumpias. I mean, they got everything. They're sitting out. I mean, they act like it's their living room, and they take over that place. And I'm gonna tell you right now, you feel that in the air every time with Manny Pacquiao. Go back and watch the Keith Thurman fight. It happens, man. I'm telling you, Errol's got to understand this is.
And
a huge
Manny
part of the
feeds
fight.
off that. Manny feeds off that.
He feeds off of it, man. I'm telling you.
Well, Lomachenko said the same thing in his last performance. He said when he fought Teofimo, it just didn't feel right. He says he feeds off the crowd and the reaction. So
Go back
you know,
and watch the Mayweather fight. Even though Manny lost that fight, you know, because Mayweather, whatever, like this. The times when Manny got into the fight was the times when the crowd was behind him. It was like infusion, man. I mean, he sparks up. He starts doing what he does and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a big hurdle for Errol Spence to get
hey,
over.
Colt had a prediction. Colt, you think Manny Pacquiao is going to pull it off?
Yeah, maybe because like he does have some fast punches, but like it may be like maybe just like my opinion, it could be a 50-50, like how you said like these like things that Errol Spence has and like these things that Manny Pacquiao has, like it may be a close like fight, maybe.
So it could come down to a close decision.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll
Yeah,
tell you
but
what.
like I said, Errol Spence really needs to like have his game on and not underestimate Manny Pacquiao because he does have some fast punches.
Yeah, and he can end it. Yeah, if Manny catches him, yeah, especially like he caught Thurman in that fight early.
Yeah, you got to give Thurman a lot of credit because Thurman was able to bounce back and be competitive, and the fight was debatable. But the bigger issue is you got to look at if Spence gets dropped because is indestructible as Keith Thurman has acted. Keith Thurman to me has always been kind of like the hippie of the welterweight division. He's very humble in a lot of ways. Errol Spence, don't get me wrong, he's a very humble guy too, but he holds the things he's been able to do in the rings high regards. If Manny at his age drops Errol Spence, he's gonna have a bigger hurdle than just worrying about winning the fight. It's where his career lies, kind of like what just happened with Jamel Charlo. I think that's the thing that's bothering Jamel. I don't mean to circle back to things, is he's going back and going, I lost to this little guy. I should have knocked this guy out. I knocked out Erickson Lubin. I knocked out this guy.
In his mind, he knows he lost the fight. You see it in his face after the fight. He knows he lost that fight.
So I mean, those are the kind of questions that are going to be answered. Of course, you got guys like Bud Crawford and others that are, you know, they're going to say that they want Errol Spence to win, but they want Manny Pacquiao to win, and it doesn't matter because if Errol's okay, here's the way I'll put it before we end. Would you rather end your career with a loss to a great like Manny Pacquiao, where you tried and you dared to be great, or would you rather end undefeated, knowing that you never took the big fight, you took the easy road?
Yeah.
To get out with that O. I would rather take the loss, saying, hey, you know what? I gave it a shot. It didn't work out, but hey, I could say this is what I did. And my one loss is the Manny Pacquiao. That's not a bad thing to say.
Yeah, and the fact that Manny, more kudos to him for taking this fight against what's considered the elite of the division. The guy who's, what is Errol now, 28 years old, 28 going on 29 years old, prime of his career. You know,
well, I'm seeing more critics too. In the beginning, it was kind of like, wow, this is a big bite for Manny Pacquiao. But then they kind of went back and looked at what Manny's done. Like, well, wait a minute, maybe it's not that big of a bite. Oh, wait a minute, and that pendulum's starting to swing a little bit.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I'm kind of starting to. I still favor Errol in the fight, but I'm telling you, the more and more as it goes on, and more I'm seeing the way Manny's training and how he looks, and I'm seeing more and more very, very, very winnable fight for Manny. Like I said, if he could do it early, if he could focus his energy on maybe trying to get Spence out in 6 rounds, 6-7 rounds or less. I think if it just goes past that, I just think Spence will, you know, boxing, the business of boxing, you know, if it's a close fight, you know, they've done it to Manny in the past. They'll have no problem doing it to him again with the close decision loss or whatever.
Well, you know,
whatever.
You know, the thing is, before we get out of here too, is that there's been a lot of comparison to Manny Pacquiao because of his size with guys like Mikey Garcia and how he was able to perform against a guy like
you
can't even putting those two fighters in the same conversation is ridiculous. Okay, Manny Pacquiao's size has never mattered when it comes to Manny Pacquiao. To me, Manny Pacquiao, you know, you like I said, you got to give the guy credit for what he is. I haven't always been a big fan of the guy, but you gotta, at this stage in his career, to take this fight without even a blink of the eye or a nod of the head or another meeting. He was like, yeah, let's do it. That shows you the kind of fighter and the confidence. And that's a key, man. Confidence, something Manny has. Let's hope Arrows brings it that day.
Yep.
Confidence is everything, man.
Colt, do you have anything you want to say before we get out of here, Colty?
Not really. I just want to say that everybody just have a good day and just tell us in the comments if you like tell us who you're rooting for in the fight and on August 21st.
21st, yep.
Yeah.
A month from now.
Yeah.
4 weeks from yesterday.
Yeah. Why don't you go and take us out, Colt? Give us the whole, you know, subscribe thing and go and take us out.
Subscribe, hit that like button, turn on those notifications, and let us know in the comments if you know who you want to root for on the 21st. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And if you have anything else that we may missed out in the video, maybe just let us know in the comments.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Take us out, Mike.
All righty, for all of us that entered the ring, Mighty Mike,
AJ Rage,
and
Cosmic Colt.
And Eric the Red. He was trying to get back in the room, but we couldn't get in. But Eric, we know we love you, bro.
All right, thanks everybody. We'll see you guys on Tuesday. We'll be talking about this week's. I do know the fight coming up this week, so we'll touch base on it on Tuesday. So have a good night, everybody.
Everybody have a great night.
See ya.
See you soon, Colt.